Soule in this studio with Ben Robinson from New York.
Hello, everyone.
Ben Robinson and I are going to talk about the pot at the end of the rainbow. Many of these are in his book, Magical. There it is, by Ben Robinson. And we're going to just read this out loud. The pot at the end of the rainbow is being able to create, build, market, and thrive on doing magic only you do. So let's talk about stuff that only you do. Let's talk about creating, building, marketing, thriving. What does all that mean? It's not so simple.
It isn't. And I'm old school enough to want to learn from books, but not even books, pamphlets. In the 1930s, magic was marketed in these little pamphlets, maybe 15, 20 pages. And in there is the gold, thimble magic, silk magic, card manipulations 1 and 2. All these books came out during the Depression. And what I did was I learned everything in those books, and then I picked objects that they weren't talking about. Wand magic became pencil magic. Thimble magic became ring magic. The good night banner became a patch jacket that made the patches appear. So I was synthesizing magic.
That's nice.
That
let's synthesizing these different types of magic. But what's the patches thing?
Okay, so everyone knows what a jean jacket is, right?
Yes.
And you're a member of Cub Scout 44, and you put the patch on the thing.
Yes.
So my pandemic project was, somebody gave me a patch. I said, what do I do with this? They said, oh, you put it on your jean jacket. I said, I don't have a jean jacket. So I went out and bought a jean jacket to put the patch on. And then I got this idea. What would happen if you had a jacket that made the patches appear on?
So you made an appearing patch?
Yeah, I made a whole wall of appearing patches.
Oh,
the jacket has patches, and each of the, well, not each, but many of the patches do magic or gags on their own. For instance, on the sleeve, it says nothing. So I have nothing up my sleeve. Or I have a Jekyll and Hyde patch that's on a rubber elastic. I open a pocket and I say, see, here's Dr. Jekyll. And then I let it go and it snaps back to the pocket. I go, now he's Mr. Hyde. And
that's cool.
It's all little jokes like that. And then I say, but we didn't do the interior of the jacket. I show it all completely empty. And I say, but a good magician can make you see what he wants you to see. And I flick it, and then there are 24 patches.
Right.
And so doing magic only you do. Now we've got the concept. What we're selling is something very specific. And where that turns into money and advantage and market share is that if the buyer really wants what you're selling, they can only buy it from you. Therefore, you can name your own price because you're the only one that offers it. And this is a tried and true formula in all business. The magician Marvin Roy was the one who introduced this to me, because arguably there was no more successful magician in the history of magic than Marvin Roy. He was Mr. Electric. And it's the harder mountain to climb.
Right.
You could
doing magic that's your own, that you created.
Right, because it's your painting, your gallery, your art show, your promotion. You're the head force behind whatever it is that's being sold. But if it is sold, you profit much greater.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If it is sold, you profit much more, much greater. Yeah, I agree. But you say it's harder. Why would you want to do anything hard? Why not do the easy way? Now, what is the easy way?
I think, well, I have every respect for Ben Chavez and his wife, who created the Chavez School of Magic.
Oh, that's a good example.
But when you go to Chavez, as Norm Nielsen did, as others did, you will learn to manipulate playing cards, you'll learn the billiard balls, you'll learn manipulative acts and other sleight of hand. And basically, when you come out of that school, you're going to have a certain body of knowledge, which is great, except you're all the same. You were all made to do the same thing. And just because of my upbringing or whoever I am, I didn't want to do anything that anybody else was doing.
Mm-hmm. One of the famous aphorisms of G.I. Gurdjieff is either just go to school or do something nobody else does. Either just stay in school or, and of course he's hoping you're going to do the or part, the do what nobody else does, do something no one else does.
Right. Now,
that's a real variety artist style.
It is.
That's what Funny Bones is mostly about, that, the old clowns.
Yes, and that's my world.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
That's
I know. You are that.
What I think of when I create something. I do know now that I am creating things only I create. In other words, it's my idea, so I go forward with it. But I didn't start with that as my impetus. I didn't say, oh, gee, I only want to do stuff I do. I would just have these ideas and go do them without being fully aware that it was not the way everybody else was going.
I think there's a lesson in this. Don't take our formula that we're telling you, but look at how much you love doing something that's from your own creativity. And then once you start to really enjoy that process, realize that you're doing our formula.
Yes.
You're doing it, but don't try to do it at first.
Right.
Because you might get lost just trying that formula.
Right. Who was the famous philosopher who said, follow your bliss?
Joseph Campbell.
Right. This is very Joseph Campbell, because my orientation to create art was simply because I liked it. I was doing something I liked to do. And that is follow your bliss. But I didn't even know the words follow your bliss. I just did it instinctively. And interestingly enough, the people I most admire get me. They understand what I'm about, because they're like that too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that's very gratifying for me to know that somebody, sorry, I hit my mic. That's very gratifying for me to know that at least I gravitated to people who gravitated toward me. I've had interactions with the Marx family, the Chaplin family, the Keaton family, and in several cases, no grandstanding, family members of the men I most admire have said, oh, Dad would have loved you. Oh, that was what Uncle Buster did.
You were on that end of an era thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you made your way in through real relationships and real efforts to be available to these folks.
That's right.
And to learn from them. But you were more, I think, learning how to be that way, not the specific trick.
Exactly.
You came up with your own tricks, like this pencil that you invented and taught to me earlier today,
Right.
The sharpening of the pencil. It's a great, great magic trick that Ben Robinson invented. It's a great one.
And it was just that it finally coalesced in my brain. I thought, oh, you could do that with this. After years of studying wand magic or cigarette magic or long tubular magic, I said, oh, a pencil. Let's do that.
Which brings me back to our theme. The pot at the end of the rainbow is, okay, even the idea that there is a pot at the end of a rainbow is important to this discussion, is being able to create, build, market, and thrive on doing magic only you do.
Right.
And then you say Marvin Roy Revisited, and we heard you mention him, but what's that about?
While there had been, and Marvin Roy would be the first to tell you this, there had been an electric act in vaudeville prior to him, but not the way he did it. When Marvin came up at the end of the 1940s, it was the end of the Supper Club, the end of World War II, then the silent 50s when he was still Marvin Levy doing a silk act.
I heard that.
But when the 1960s came along, so did rock and roll, and so did the magician moving faster to rock and roll. And when he added electricity and light with a rock and roll beat,
Yeah.
it exploded and he played the world.
Sure.
People don't know that the United States of America traded Marvin Roy to Russia for Nureyev, the dancer, in 1962 in an artistic exchange.
Wow. Interesting
That's
indeed.
really speaks to me. What act got to that pinnacle? And the answer is the act that was the most original act. No one had ever seen anything like that.
That's true.
That's why he was who he was. So I think it's worth the time and effort to build a wonderful general education of magic. Everybody should learn as much as they can about every kind of magic. But if you want to make it a profession and prosper and build and profit, then you have to focus in on something only you do. You are a product for sale. You're a product on a shelf, and they'll either pick you off the shelf or not.
Okay, I would say that one contribution I have to speak about this is Mysterian.
Yes.
And in Mysterian, there's a giant hourglass. And I get in the top, and the hourglass is turned over by the man who turns the hourglass. And his name is Tavori. And the sand covers me in 30 seconds. So from the time he turns me over till the sand is done flowing is 30 seconds, which is good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people get bored.
Right.
Because normal hourglass would take, a minute or two. Well, an hour, but on a theater, to get it to 30 seconds is good. So, but that's all while I'm being turned. So you see the guy the whole time till he's covered. And then they turn it up and sand runs out, I'm gone. So that's the biggest moment is the guy's gone. Then they turn the empty one up and it runs out and Barbara's in there, whose name is Mariah. Mariah's in the top. She comes down, pulls the mask off of the guy that's been turning it, and it's me.
Right. And no one else ever did anything like that, right?
No. Yeah, it was the first time. Yeah.
You talked about love a moment ago, and that's really important because that's sort of part of the goal too. Let's just say we're both not 18, but let's just say we are 18 and we pull off that for the first time. Now you've just tasted something at 18 that no one else tastes at 18, which is great personal accomplishment with great tenacity behind it, because as you with your hourglass or me with whatever I end up doing, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. You have to be prepared to fail and accept that.
Failure is part of it.
Yeah, you have to accept that. And people, which is why maybe, I don't want to be cynical or dark, but maybe the art of magic is somewhat antiquated to the 21st century because things are moving so fast. Everybody says, oh, I want to be a great magician. Like, take your pick. But what they don't realize is that the person that they're naming probably spent 20 years developing the thing that we admire.
Yeah, and Losander is a good example. I saw him at IBM Magic Convention recently, and he invented the floating table.
Right.
Well, sorry, he invented a version of it that's legitimately something he can sell because he really put a lot into it.
Yes.
And he also has a floating table that vanishes.
Oh.
At the end. So it's floating and he covers it just a little more at the very end and then it vanishes from the foulard.
Uh-huh.
And it's worth every penny that he charges. He's excellent at it. I think people could do it just as good as him, probably.
Uh-huh.
Probably, if they buy it and work on it. And it wouldn't be too hard to learn because he's sped up the process. The failures, can you imagine? I mean, there must have been so many bad versions before he came to that final one that he's now selling.
Can I talk about a great failure?
Yeah.
And this is, and you might sit here and go, oh my God, Ben, that's so sad and terrible. But you're the one person I can talk to about it because where I am right now. So I wanted to redesign Abbott's Bathing Beauty illusion. And what this is you show a poster and it has a woman in a bathing suit. And you roll up the poster and you pull out the bathing suit, and you pull out the top, and you pull out the bottom, and then you think you're going to unroll the poster and see the woman naked, but actually there's a silhouette of her that says, look inside the tube or look elsewhere. And there she is. And it's a fake out, right?
Right.
So,
right.
and
That's funny.
and Percy Abbott did this in vaudeville, and
Right.
it paid his rent. And it was a very good illusion. So I thought, well, you have to have an easel, you have to have a girl, you have to have costuming, you have to have people to move this around, you have to have things that you put this in. So I built it. But instead of a bathing beauty, I made it a surrealist painting with a floating eyeball inside a cloud and a boot on a lone mountain range and a floating mask. So I was going to take the paint, rip the painting out of the frame, roll it up, and take those objects, the mask, the boot, and the eyeball out, and then snap it open, and those things would now be missing from it. So it was not the big joke.
Right.
And we built this thing. I hired an artist to make the paintings. I got a framer to make the framer. I had cases made, these massive things.
Nice.
Never worked.
It never worked.
We overbuilt it. It's too heavy. It's not reliable. And the thing is, a modern audience needs things in 6 seconds. They need it quickly. And this thing, I'm taking 2 minutes to change one thing to another, and it just wouldn't work to the modern age.
Gosh,
and we probably have nearly 20 grand in this thing, and it's never been performed. So, but
yeah, I've got things
as
like
much
that.
as much as I lament that, and I think, oh my God, I wish I had that money today. I also know that one day somebody will call me and say, "Hi, you wouldn't do any magic with a frame painting, would you?" I'm like,
oh, yes,
yes,
I
I
would.
do.
Yes, I could do something.
So every rocket they build to go to the outer space does not fire or work immediately. And that's a rocket costing billions of dollars. So me and my little painting illusion is no big deal. But you have to try. You have to be willing to get in there and do it.
Yeah. I was just thinking of one. I'll show you this one on the screen here. It's Hands of the Clock. And it's from the book Cooper Eden's and Steffan Soule's 20th Century Alphabet of Dreams, Magic, and Miracles.
Wow.
And
I don't know that I know
really is a difficult trick, so to speak. Here's my YouTube. I wonder if the audio will come through. This one took a while.
Hands on the clock. Oh, that's great. Wow. Fantastic.
The magic you seek
Love
must
it.
come from within.
Yeah.
So, may I comment
Yeah,
one
please.
thing? So here you have this beautiful lighted clock on stage, hands of a clock, we get it. The guy comes out, now it's a person. So in stage time, we're looking at less than a minute.
Well, you know,
And-
that one is pretty quick.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the thing is, I
It
know
took
'cause-
thousands of dollars. I mean,
well,
we're
it took
not
thousands
talking,
of dollars and hundreds of hours to build it.
Yeah,
right,
and
right.
we're talking.
Want to read in
lot
another
of
language?
Those thousands. Like,
Double check your translation with
Sure.
the Google
at
app.
least
Just
30.
tap the camera icon.
Well,
Choose Translate
I don't even
and
know.
follow along
I
with the story.
past that.
Get real-time translation in
this
over
is sort of the
100
curse of the
languages.
big illusion.
Download
with
the
me.
Google
I've
app
never
today.
been successful with big illusions, simply because of the tweaking of it to get it right for stage. Even if it made it to the stage, you don't have 20 years on the road with this thing. You don't know it. It's not slick. And people ask for these things. They go, hey, can you make the Empire State Building disappear? It's like, yes, I can. How much is that going to cost? $1 million. Okay, well, could you do it Tuesday? You know, they have no idea.
I know. And they always call after it's pretty much too late to actually do
Right.
something that would be close to what they deserve.
Exactly.
And, building, I built that clock.
I imagine. It's amazing.
Then marketing, that's something I've never really done. I made one brochure, sent it out, and I've just made my living as a magician. I didn't really market very well
I am
or very much.
I am the son of two visionary advertisers. My mother wrote the Nabisco line, "A kid will eat the middle of an Oreo first and save the chocolate cookie outside for last,"
Yikes.
which lasted for 25 years on network television.
Wow.
My father saw what he called a riveted dungaree used on a horse farm in Arizona in 1934. He was describing Levi's jeans, which had never been east of the Mississippi in 1934. And he said, at age 16 in 1934, someday the youth culture of the world will wear this riveted dungaree. And had my father lived, he would have been a very wealthy man, because at the end of his life, he was selling Western wear, moving toward bringing in this riveted dungaree. And now, when the wall fell in East Berlin,
that is so amazing.
The most coveted contraband from the West was Levi's jeans. You could make tens of thousands of dollars overnight if you had a cargo van of Levi's jeans. They were so hungry for them in Eastern Europe and Russia. My point is that I inherited this
creativity.
I was going to use the words maverick spirit, because my mother also did the Brooke Shields jeans ads, where Brooke Shields very scandalously said in 1984, "You know what's between me and my Calvins? Nothing." So it was, oh my God, this young woman is being sexual and she's selling jeans.
And she likes those jeans.
And she likes those jeans, right? And I was there. I was at the focus group session when that happened, when they were saying, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this?" And everyone thought it was scandalous, and it was for Calvin Klein, of course. So he said, "Perfect, let's do it. We'll make the evening news, and they won't charge us for the commercial. We could sell our jeans by being scandalous." So how does that translate into the magician's world? Well, one quick story. There was an outdoor plaza, International Paper Plaza, 44th Street between 5th and 6th. At noon, 3 days a week, they had quartets, pantomimes, and maybe a singer. And they would pay these afternoon acts $150 for 45 minutes entertainment. So I said, give me that 3 times a week, $450 for 3 shows a week. I'm in. Let's do that. They wouldn't hire me. The guy kept saying, "No, we don't hire magicians. No, we don't hire magicians. We don't want magicians." So I called him every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on the dot to say, "Don't you remember me? Don't you want me?" And he kept hanging up on me.
And that worked?
So finally, a year and a half later, he knew it was me, and he said, "Would you please stop calling me?" I said, "Look, I just got booked for your entire series in time. I couldn't even do it if you offered me a job. So don't you want to meet me?" And he said, "Why would I want to meet you if I didn't want to hire you?" I said, "Because we've had this whole relationship." And he said, "Okay, meet me Thursday at 3. And I went in Thursday at 3.
Yeah.
I showed him some magic, and he said, "In your case, I'd make an exception because you're the best magician I ever saw." I said, "I just became available."
Whoa, that's nice.
So my point is, there are no real barriers when you really believe in your product. And that's the joy of marketing your own thing. Because it's yours, it's your baby, it's your child, and you believe in promoting that to have some satisfaction, I guess.
Yeah, I think that works but they were using things that, like, I never really pushed the sex thing far enough, we were always a family show,
Well, again, you came up with a product that fit a market, and you kept doing that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never did that. I would always build something for a market, and then it would be over, and then I have to build something else for another market. It was, with the exception of doing close-up magic at parties, I've never had a consistent job. I used to know acts when there were more venues for live performance that simply advertised themselves as balloons and birds. We do 15 minutes on stage. We live in a trailer. We'll go anywhere to work. And that was it. And that was an act called Scalzo and Company. They were great, but they lived in a van. They carried lots of birds, and they performed at every convention in the world.
Yeah, and that's in some ways what, the hourglass could have been, or the clock, but it's expensive. It takes, a lot of people to run those. The guy that, Jeff McBride was the guy that told me, Steffan, it's not very practical to have a big illusion show.
Right, right.
And he's a great magician.
Yes.
He knows how to do it, and he's still doing it, and he's very good at it, and he teaches. That's nice. And then in terms of marketing, I think what you've said is good. That's a tough subject because I haven't been good at it, but I made a living.
Right. And it's
if I'd been better at it, I probably would have made a better living. That's what I'm kind of saying.
My living, better living, good living, here's how I saw it. If I was always working and I only had myself to support, I could do that.
Yeah.
Now, life has become faster and more complicated, and we who started out in the 1980s or 70s, really, for me, I feel lost in the age of the internet because there's so many different things to choose from, and quality does not necessarily will out. People think if you have 50,000 friends on Facebook, you're a more popular person than the guy who has three. And I resent the term friends. They're not really your friends. You and I are friends, right?
Right.
If you were in trouble, I would come to help you. That's a friend. But some guy that clicks on your thing with a smiley face.
It's weird. And yeah, they've mislabeled things and we don't understand how to use it. And when Johnny Ace Palmer won FISM, when he took first place, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there for that entire convention.
Wow.
I watched him present his award-winning in his moment of competing.
Amazing.
And Eugene Berger was with me, and we were both watching Johnny, and we had opinions, and we exchanged ideas, and we thought he could win, but we had some, not criticisms, but like, oh my gosh, there's a Fantasio candle in a close-up show.
Yeah.
You can see the lines. Well, guess what? I'm streaming from my basement right now. Who cares? They don't care about the lines. But we did then. And anyway, he won. And many years later, I think maybe 5 or 10. No, I think 20.
Okay.
I don't know. We could look it up in History of Genie magazine.
Right.
Somebody wrote a good article about where is so-and-so and has it helped them to have won.
Right. I know
and
the
the
article.
answer was no, it hasn't helped them. That was a clear answer of no. Yes, they're great. Yes, they have careers, but has it helped them?
Well,
not really.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking is what is helping them mentally?
To have won first place at FISM.
But are we asking, does that lead to money? Is that what we're asking?
Yeah, we're saying, does that lead to a career?
Okay.
Does it help your career?
Well, in Lance Burton's case, it did.
Well, The Tonight Show kind of really did it.
But he won FISM, and that got him on The Tonight Show. He's announced as the FISM Award winner December 31st, 1985. That was his, and Johnny gave him all 12 minutes.
Oh my, that's a big thing.
He said direct from it was in Spain that year, 85. The first American to win the world championship. Please welcome one of the best magic acts I've ever seen, Lance Burton. And Johnny said, I'll bump a guest to let him do all 12.
I don't know.
Well, I think it depends on who. And I've heard this from Johnny. I know him pretty well. And I know So that award happened in July of 1988.
Yes.
I
it did.
toured with him in December of 88 to the 10 little shows he was doing a day because of that publicity in his hometown, Warren, Ohio, where it was every social.
10 different locations in one day?
His mother went bananas and booked him for $10 and $15. Oh, my son will come over, the world champion. Da, da, da. And he did a million favors for people. And I was.
He's always been so kind.
Yeah. So that didn't help him. But what did help him was when he moved to Los Angeles into a bigger market with a bigger award. And while, imagine this, if you go for a job as a close-up magician at a restaurant, you say, hey, I'm the world champion, the restaurant will say, what are you doing here?
Well, right. Hello.
Yeah.
That's one of the weirdest things about our careers as magicians. Even Copperfield's beyond that. Henning was almost beyond that. But everyone else is below. We all get that.
Right.
That happens to a lot of us.
Right.
Not just the famous Johnnies, but...
Right.
You know.
And it's because of respect and legitimization of the magician's performance and their job.
I'm going to have one.
Yeah. Which one is seltzer? They're both seltzer.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's such a big thing. But I will tell you one thing which I hope others adopt. When I mentioned the International Paper Plaza show earlier, hi, no, we don't book magicians. No, we don't book magicians. Oh, you're the best magician I've ever seen. I'll make an exception in your case. I always knew that I could do that. All they had to do was see me and I'd get hired.
Cool.
Because I knew that my act was money in the bank. And my act could travel anywhere. It was 2 thumb tips, 1 silk, 1 crumpled bill, a deck of cards, a paper bag, and a knife. That was it. I could go anywhere in the world with that.
The right character, the right sequence. You had it.
Yeah, I could do what those props enabled me to do in either 7.5 minutes or 15 minutes or even 21 minutes if I had to stretch it that long. Anywhere in the world. And in those days, you could bring a knife on an airplane. So I was unfettered. And I would say, this gets into another topic, but in my really busy years performing, I was knocking down probably 200 paid shows a year.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt King told me, he said, oh, well, that's like the comedians 220. I said, what is that? He goes, that's how many nights on the road you have to perform to make a living as a comedian. 220.
I'm sure they all know that and basically have come to some agreement there.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I don't even want to say bored. I'm interested in too many things like self-promotion. But this year we have the book and then we have the song and now we're starting on the film.
Yeah, the book is fantastic.
And
it's right here.
There we go. Magical with the cover by Charles Chu. That's a VT.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually put it up on the right
okay.
Thing here. It's supposed to look more like that.
There we have it. So
yeah,
this is years for seconds. So I asked Charles how long it took him to paint E.T. He's looked at me and he said, 3 minutes. I said, 3 minutes? He goes, after 49 years of painting.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So that's
do you still want to create, build, and market? I don't want to market ever. I love creating. I love building. But thriving and doing stuff only you do, those 2 parts of our theme we really haven't quite talked about. I still want to do some of it.
All right.
But I am thriving. I have thriven my way.
I have
thriven through being a professional magician. And now in my thrivingness, I thrive to be here. Oh, God.
Monty Python Revisited. I think here's thriving.
Yes.
John Booth, the great John Booth, who died at age 98, who I worked on 4 books with, was always imploring me, Ben, live your life on several different pillars. That way you won't get bored with just one of them. You'll always have several more. And magic is very limited. You do a show, You get paid, you leave, and that's it. It doesn't lead to a lot more, maybe a return booking a year or two later, but
Yeah.
it's very limited, and you keep doing it over and over, which brings to mind
Yeah.
Carl Ballantyne's joke, I'm a traveling magician. With an act like mine, I got to keep traveling.
Yeah,
And
that's a funny line.
Right. So one night I had done 2 shows and I made good money, and the last host tipped me $100, and I went home and I was feeling great that night I not only made my rent in one night, and then more. And I called a young lady I knew and I sent a car for her, and she came over and we had a great time together. And then the next day I took her out for breakfast and everything was wonderful. And I was thinking, here it is. I have
You've arrived.
employment, romance, money, doing something that everybody applauds me for. And that was a memory that I've lived on when I've been starving in the garret. I was like, oh my God, am I actually going to get out of this?
Yeah.
I remember those moments where that was my goal.
To get out of that, or to remember and come back to that?
To remember and come back to that.
Yeah. So the thriving with magic.
Yes. But magic has brought me all my adventures. I did a show in Southport, Connecticut. I don't know who's in the audience. And then that night I'm staying overnight, and the guy who's in the same room as I am is the only man to have conquered the highest mountain on each continent, Dick Bass. And he invites me to Snowbird, where I was for months and months as artist in residence. And then after I did that gig and I gave him a painting by Charles saying thank you, which hangs at the resort today, he said, Ben, I'm going back to Everest. I want you to do a show. Will you come with me?
Whoa.
So my point is, a little show in Southport, Connecticut, 2.25 years later, led to an adventure halfway around the world at the base camp of the highest mountain on the planet. And I don't think you get that just by being the better employee and turning over the better numbers for your boss.
True.
It's something else. And again, we're back to follow your bliss, but
I just wanted you to see the mountains.
Oh, there we go.
Because they were part of our show here already.
Harry Anderson told me, he said, I've never not believed in magic, and thank you for having magic believe in me. In other words, they were giving him an award.
That's confusing my mind.
Oh, well, he said that he believed in magic, that he could have the career that he then had.
Oh, that's funny. I believe in
magic, and then he was thanking magicians for believing in him that he could do that.
Oh, that's funny. That's double, triple meaning.
Yes. And it's typically Harry. It's very clever, very profound.
Very much that.
Really lovely.
His opening line, by the way, was, "You like my belt? I got it on the dresser or something."
Yeah.
I forget what he said.
Okay.
But it implies that his wife had an affair that he didn't understand was.
Right.
It was like, I forget but it put everyone thinking that he's an idiot.
Exactly.
And then, of course, he's the opposite of that the whole rest of the time.
That's right.
And then that's funny because a smart guy said that to start out with. It's very clever.
Yeah. His masterpiece to me is his first TV special, Hello Sucker, where it's done at the Hermosa Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach, California. And he's backstage seen on the microphone saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a liar, a cheat, a braggart, and a thief. A man I am proud to call my friend, Mr. Harry Anderson." And he comes out to Glenn Miller's Take 6, and he ruled. From the second he got there, he was in charge, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
And to me, that's also thriving. When you know this,
that is thriving.
When you're on stage and it's happening.
Yeah.
It's, to me, I don't have human children, but there's nothing better. That's it.
I got to admit that you've touched the sole of my feet, and myself.
Okay.
I mean, I did that. Like, just every step I took was right there. The sole of my foot was the soul of the universe. Yeah, magic is great that way, and I don't really miss it, but I do know the feeling of being right there with that.
Talk to me about the word confidence.
Well, the other night I shouldn't have done this, but nothing went wrong. Everything went right, so I should have. But it was risky. I was doing a performance in a theater, and there was a rock band that had set up a whole bunch of things on the floor. as big as this book
Uh-huh.
and maybe half the size of this little table.
Uh-huh.
And it was expensive gear on the floor, right where I'm supposed to perform, in the middle of the stage. And that's where they put their mics and their
Of course,
cords. And,
right.
and then they say, so where are you going to perform? Well, I said, I'm not going to move anything. I'm going to keep what you've done. So I hopped over it all.
Confident that you could take care of the situation.
Super confidently.
Right.
And I shouldn't have, because I haven't been working out.
Well,
I haven't done shows in years.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yes,
or a
and no.
year, but yeah.
I understand why you're saying that, and I agree
But I
with you
did it.
because you're saying it. But I also think it comes into play all your experience
Yeah.
that is still there in the moment, so therefore you can handle it.
Yeah, I did.
One of the reasons I got hired was not because I'm the better act, but because I was easy to work with and I had no setup.
That's nice.
They loved that with me,
I think
especially
that is
with
nice.
bands.
Yeah, with bands.
Because of all that stuff out there. And I have more stories than I could ever tell about things like that. Here's the big difference that I want thought about, at least, which is, one, we both want magic to be recognized as an art. And when somebody really does understand that it is an art, they're in worship of it, because they can't believe the lengths magicians will go to get an effect.
Once they understand how hard it is to make the craft artful,
Yes.
they'll agree it's art.
Yes. I know a production designer in Hollywood who I showed some stuff to for a project that didn't happen for me, but happened for her. And she said, it's really a beautiful art you perform. In other words, you think about it from every level: lighting, fabric, color, speed of preparation, the camera shot. You have to think of these things so many different ways to get it done. And if you do accomplish what you're trying to do, it's beautiful. The reason I asked about confidence with this is that I want other people to learn that confidence.
Right.
And I'm scared that they won't put in the time.
I'm pretty sure they won't. And that makes me a little scared, yeah. Are you up to the sacrifice? Question mark. And then the next sentence. What does it take to really be an honest to goodness, full-time, do nothing else to make a living and pay all your bills by being a magician? What does that take, and are you up to the sacrifice?
Well, if you're in a non-urban environment, you need a car to get around. That's just it. So that's your first expense, getting around, getting from job to job. Your second expense is shelter. You have to live somewhere. You have to have a base of operations, so that's going to cost something. And then you might want to eat something once in a while, so that could cost something. And you come up with everybody's monthly budget. Hi, it cost me $4,000 just to have the basics for my life. Well, gee, 4 times 12 is 48. I need a minimum of $48,000 just to live. How am I going to make $48,000 as a magician? Well, if you charge $1,000 a show, 48 shows, you're done. You made your nut.
48 shows is not a small year.
No,
it's a medium-sized year. It's not big. It's close to small. Look at that. Each show has to be $1,000.
That's right. And $1,000 in today's economy for entertaining several hundred people comes down to less than $5 a ticket.
I guess this is why live shows will always find a place in society.
John Calvert told me that he always looked for a mine strike or an avalanche because he said that people in poor conditions always sought escapist entertainment. And I don't think he was being manipulative. I think he was saying that a magician can work anywhere.
Okay, I like that attitude. And I think there's something to be said for moving to a small town and showing up at the local tavern every night to do a card show.
I think so too.
Is that possible though?
Yes.
Or do they get kicked out?
Well, ultimately, they become a fixture. There's
know
a
what I
guy
mean?
at the Magic Castle. I won't say his name because I'm not sure of his status, except that he's there every night. I don't think he's hired, and I think he doesn't make his living as a magician, but he's at the Magic Castle every night. So he's got to prepare, and his stuff is surefire. The problem is that I don't know that he's a professional magician.
Right.
And there's a, I mean, do they have fake nuclear scientists talking about fusion? No. But you do have an amateur magician saying, "Oh, I
that's
know
for
everything
Sure.
that."
That's for sure.
And so the public perception is perverted, and
That's true. That's a fact, an unfortunate fact. People in magic act like they know all there is in magic, and that's partly because we're in the role of the magician, and we're supposed to be all powerful, right? Like, I never wanted to get locked out of my car, because if the client or anyone in the audience saw me locked out of my car after the show,
yeah,
that proves you're not a real magician. You
that's
know what I'm
right.
saying? So I always wanted to live up to the role, not that I went like crazy out of my way, but I would tape a key to the license plate for that one reason.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's being prepared. I also think it's being prepared to deliver. I also think it's doing the job. And I think better magicians than I have said that if you're always on, you're a magician. If you're not always on, you're not a magician. I've never agreed with that.
I don't quite agree with that
I've
either.
said, I'm an artist. I stand on the stage. I dance. You pay me. I leave. That's the extent of our relationship.
And I agree that we should have that right as a human being to drop our role just like everybody else.
Right. But when you tell somebody you're a professional magician, the first thing out of their mouth is, can you show me some magic? Although at the hotel I was just at the airport, I was trying to thank the woman. We had a very nice conversation. I said, would you like to see some magic? She said, oh, magic creeps me out. I don't want to touch anything. I said, you don't have to touch anything. And I did something with my hands and my ring. And she's like, wow, that is creepy. And what creepy meant was, that's really cool that you're able to do that. But it was all negative. Magic creeps me out. That's creepy. I don't want to touch anything.
Right.
And that's a perception of a magician. So it's just one person.
In the end,
that's just
impression,
one person, but it's out there. And I know that there's no child that is brought up by his parents who say, now, Johnny, when you're 12 years old, you're going to learn the art of magic and you're going to study under this guy. And then by the time you're 18, you'll have made enough money to pay for your first semester of college. And by the time you're 21, you'll be the guy and you'll be young and you'll be hot and we can get you a publicist and everything's cool. And I'm sure that that could happen. But what I've been assessing more often than not is, how did I come to be in the position I am? And it's so random. Did you plan it all out from a very early age?
No. Well, the one thing I realized is I don't like to compete.
Right.
So part of thriving for me, we were riffing off thriving. Part of thriving for me is not being forced to compete.
Right.
And that required a sacrifice, speaking of the word sacrifice, because I actually sacrificed my fame potential for having a healthy life. And I actually chose that quite intentionally. For example, I said, I'm not good enough at music, and if I play my music for you, you'll see that that's true. I'm not good enough to make a living as a musician.
Right.
Just not naturally talented enough. I could have put in the 10,000 hours, but it's more than that, And it would have maybe been okay, but not great. So I chose magic because I was better at it. And I chose Seattle. I said, I'm going to stay here. I like it here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to Vegas and compete or go to LA and compete. That was the biggest fear, is LA.
Yeah.
And New York's different. You live in New York and it's so filled with arts in the right way that is the one place I would have the exception for that. It's worth the sacrifice.
Right.
Because real art happens in
I think it
New York.
does.
Yeah.
And
it really does.
This is not empirical. I don't think that art and strife or culture or urbanity necessarily go together, but because New York City is a big, dirty city, it naturally produces art, because how can you not comment on this behemoth in our midst where everything happens? Somebody's going to say something. And it's astonishing to me that 250,000 people go in and out of the city every day. Just that amount of people is bigger than most cities have as a population.
That's true.
So a city of 8.7 million people, solid, rock solid, sure, getting up to around 10 million during summer visiting hours, is overwhelming. And to exist in that, doing anything, is a challenge. So thank you for acknowledging that, because it is different.
It is.
But the one thing, it is inspiring.
Yes.
There's so much going on.
That does help.
Well, if you had your choice of 30 free events to go to on any night.
OMG, I forgot that in New York there are free events.
Museums, outdoor concerts, comedy shows, magic shows, art shows. It's overwhelming to the senses if you're aware. And you also have to know how to get around, because they're not all in the same place.
If you know how to get there and back. Yeah.
So the thing is, a friend of mine who came from wealth and then married great wealth said, New York City is a great city if you have money. And if you don't have money, it's not so great, because you'll be run over by the people who have money to get along well. It's a status of living. It's like you can get a meal at any hour. And I've had friends from Seattle. They were catching an early airplane. Very cool. They're working with Jane's Addiction. And they had to catch an early morning flight at 6:45 from LaGuardia. So at 5 a.m., I took them to a diner where they would make any kind of sandwich they required at all. Just tell me what you want and I'll make it. And the guy ordering the sandwich turns to me and he goes, you mean you can come here 24/7 and they'll just make any sandwich you want? I said, that's right. He goes, oh, I'm moving here.
I know, that's how it was on the cruise ships when I worked on the cruise ships. There was always a sandwich bar till 3 a.m. or something.
So
I loved it. I love those
in
sandwiches.
a 24-hour city, you have 24-hour everything, and it does distort things. So
makes a lot of sense to have that.
I was asking you and Barbara the other night, does living surrounded by beauty enhance your joy of living and your constitution? And you both agreed, yes, it does.
Yeah, it also helps art. Just like New York helps art.
Sure, because you have such beauty.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, you got it. You in both places.
Well,
they're different types of things, but they're the same.
They are the same
in terms of
inspiration.
influence.
I mean, I would match your sky against anything.
I understand.
Van Gogh and Arles, not a problem, Vince.
Truly,
we have
truly.
we have this going on here. Would you like to come here and see our colors? So it is amazing. Anger. You want to talk about anger, or you have to go?
I think we got to go. Yeah.
Okay.
That really upsets me. I'm angry.
Yeah, I thought
but I have to go.
Touch the anger before we go.
We're on our way. We'll be back, and we will definitely see you in the next video.